Alright, we just saw The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, Peter Jackson's conclusion to the Hobbit trilogy. And on this show, I take my friends, we go see a movie, we review it in the car, and then we have a discussion. The review part's spoiler-free, so if you're on the fence or trying to decide if this is a movie you want to see, watch the review. We'll tell you what we think without spoiling anything. After that's done, we'll start the discussion. The discussion will include spoilers. So if you have already seen the movie or don't care to and just want to hear everything that we thought, watch the whole thing and hear about everything that we thought about it. So I was a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like I think a lot of people are. I was kind of disappointed with the Hobbit trilogy, like I think a lot of people are. I found The Desolation of Smaug to be a better movie than the first Hobbit movie. And again, I think that's a fairly common opinion. This movie is not better than The Desolation of Smaug, in my opinion. And it does a number of things that really hurt it. The way that they deal with Smaug is, it just feels like a complete anticlimax. Bilbo Baggins is, again, sort of sidelined and not really part of the story. And there are sections where you follow characters that you just don't care about at all. And that's been a problem with the other, parts of the series. But really, I think that for people that saw The Desolation of Smaug and were disappointed with where it ended, with the cliffhanger of the ending, you get the ending that you wanted in the first 10 minutes of this movie before the credits, and then this other movie starts and it's really, really slow and really boring. And it's not something that I would rush out and watch again. The Lord of the Rings is something that I would put on once a year. I'll watch the extended editions and all of that sort of thing. This is already, even at 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it feels really long. It feels really stretched out. The other thing I have a problem with, and this is more of a problem with the source material, really, than it is with the movie, but the stakes are so low, and they have been since the beginning. Very few main characters die. Everyone that dies up until the very, 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 very last moment is a nameless character that we haven't been really introduced to. They're just people in a crowd, or a bunch of CGI army people. So you really have a hard time connecting with any of the drama or any of the weight of what's happening. If you're a huge fan of the series and you want to see it, here's who I would recommend this movie to. If you have seen the other two movies and you want to see this movie in the format that it's intended, you need to see this movie in IMAX 3D high frame rate, because this will never look or be better than it is right now. Like, there will never be a home video version of it that comes close to this, at least for the foreseeable future, probably for 10 years or more. So from that perspective, it's an interesting tech demo to see what that's like. If you haven't seen the other movies that way, I would still recommend coming and checking this out, just to kind of see what the high frame rate does and how that affects and makes the 3D smoother and better overall. But as a 2D movie, no, I can't recommend it, especially at full price in the theater. If you're going to watch it in 2D, watch it at home. That's what I thought. What did you guys think?
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and agree with all of that. Essentially, same with you. You get together, you have a bunch of friends together once a year, and have a Lord of the Rings marathon. Everyone does it. We all do it. Mm-hmm. And you get to the the second Hobbit, and you're so excited at the very end, and it cuts off. You're like, oh man, I can't wait till the next one. And then we get to the Battle of the Five Armies, and within the first 5 minutes was the ending.
Right.
And it just was like, and I turned to Aaron, and I was like, really? Already? And I was just like, that was Like, the climax was there, the potential was there, and then they nuked it. Mm-hmm. And that was the most disappointing part to me, honestly. Loved the ending. The ending was really good as far as that goes, but I'm just still not really sure how I feel about the movie. There was so much hype to it, and then, I don't know, like you said, drawn out.
Yeah, who would you tell to go see it?
People who want to finish the series.
Okay.
Because, you watch something for so long, and you're waiting for something for so long, and you want to see how it ends. Go see how it ends. Full price for 2D? Nah. But 3D, yeah. I mean, that was worth seeing, but I don't know, people that like fighting? Really? There's a lot of fight scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as that goes,
there's
good.
So many better movies for that.
There really is. And I think that's what was so disappointing, is because there was so much potential for this movie. And it just didn't reach what it should have. Mm-hmm. Honestly.
Yeah. What do you think?
I have to say that I thought this was absolutely terrible. I didn't enjoy almost any of it. I thought the parts with Smaug at the beginning were janky. Mm-hmm. Kind of like his movements looked horrible. He looked out of place, like he had been copied and pasted onto the scene. Mm-hmm. The acting was very bad, and throughout the movie, when the high frame rate really kicked in and you saw the action speed up, the audio didn't, and sometimes their mouths were moving and there were no words, or there were words and their mouths weren't moving yet. It was a lot of technical issues like that throughout the entire movie. It was bad, and I would really only suggest this to people that are completionists that just have to see how it ends, because if Dale, if you're correct, and this is the way you have to see it, it really didn't look very good. And so if really this is the best, I can only imagine how horrible it's going to be in 2D.
I mean, if you watch Smaug in 2D, and if you saw Smaug in high frame rate in IMAX 3D, the difference is substantial. Like, it looks bad in 2D because it's overlit, and it's shot to be a 3D viewing experience. This is the format that it was made to be in, and so it doesn't work as a home movie.
But that's the issue with creating 3D movies, is that when you create it for the 3D effect and you go to watch it in 2D, it's crap.
Right.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
And
the music was really good, though, as always.
The music was good.
Like, I don't know who their composer is, but he did a really good job. But I don't know if Peter Jackson just checked out or what, but this was easily the weakest of the 6 movies.
It was almost like they rushed the production of it. That they were just kind of like, hey, here's some bits and pieces, let's throw it all together. That's another thing that really bugged me, is that transitions were just awful in every way possible. When you're looking for a movie to go see, you want the transitions to go in, and you want the transition to be smooth and collected and make sense. Here it was kind of...
Yeah. There are some specific scenes I'd like to bring up, but we'll save that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. What do you think, Jeremy?
I'm the odd man out. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
There's very little about the movie I didn't like. And not getting into spoilers yet, but I will later. But I think it's interesting, two of the big things Dale mentioned about an anticlimax and Bilbo's lack of presence. Probably two of my favorite things, because I just finished reading the book and I felt like they hit all of the high points of the book that I really wanted to see in the movie, including those. So I don't know if it's just because I have it super fresh in my mind that I got to see all this stuff I just finished. Having said that, the Battle of the Five Armies is all of 25 pages in the original book.
Right.
So it's funny to see that stretched out over 2 hours. But no, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely not my favorite. Desolation of Smaug is. I definitely agree that that's still good. But I had a really good time watching it. I would watch it again. I might watch it again in the theater before it goes out. I'm not sure. I'm certainly I'll buy it. So I think if if kind of like Dale said, if you're a big fan and you like all the other movies, if you really like the book and you're a huge Tolkien nerd, then you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's our review. That's where the spoiler-free section ends. We're kind of a mixed review here, kind of a slanting toward the negative. But yeah, like we've said, I think if you feel like you need to see it, or you feel like you want to see how the Desolation of Smaug was really supposed to end, and you're willing to, fork out the money for the high frame rate IMAX 3D, I think it's worth seeing it that way if you're going to see it at all. At least see it that way once. Don't wait until it comes out on Netflix or home video or whatever. So, getting into the discussion part, getting into spoilers. Now, this is a problem with the source material, and it's also a problem with the adaptation, because this movie was adapted from a children's book into a PG-13 trilogy. And what I talked about stakes. So one of the big problems I've had with this series, and I think it's even more apparent in this movie than it is with the others, is nobody dies. Nobody important dies.
Hey, my man crush died. I beg to differ.
No, hang on. Let me finish. So, name a character that was killed by Smaug. You can't.
No.
There are no named characters killed by Smaug. Bilbo outruns Smaug. Thorin, balances on his nose and gets away in the second one. And then Smaug just is like, I'll just go burn down Lake Town. And then he's killed in one shot without any named characters dying. That's a problem from a dramatic standpoint.
Within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's killed right off. It's a very anticlimactic thing for that cliffhanger of the last movie. And I remember watching The Fellowship of the Ring in the theater, and the cliffhanger at the end of that is like, wow, I got to see this next movie. And then The Two Towers is the best of the six. So they had a lot to live up to, and they really blew it. But it's also something where I think if they had really made this into a PG-13 trilogy, if they had made it in the style of The Lord of the Rings, they would have to not call it The Hobbit, because they'd have to change a lot of things. They'd have to change, we'd have to have characters that we liked die as a result of, fighting with dragons and this other stuff. And then we have the Battle of the Five Armies, which is, they introduce us to all of the players in that, and that kind of starts happening, and you don't really care about anything that's happening. The elf dude that is just kind of a jerk, don't care what happens to him. That Thane guy shows up, the other dwarf guy, and you don't care about him. He's only been on screen for 5 minutes. And it's not until the very end, the ending has a little bit of satisfaction to it, because they actually finally get to where there's stakes. They kill Kili and Fili, and they kill Thorin, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's 3 movies, and that is all that we've really lost over the whole thing.
I really thought that they were going to kill off Tauriel, but they didn't. And
they used Tauriel to
add
make
romance.
but also to make us feel a little bit worse when Kili died.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we wouldn't have really cared that much. And that's one of the problems with the dwarves in the books.
There's just so many of them. You never make a connection with any of them in the
They
books.
have no character. They are just names.
Yeah. The pretty face.
They're just names.
But, I don't know. Honestly, there no major deaths, no major... For as big and bad as they made Smaug out to be, he burned down a city.
Yeah, Smaug was a huge disappointment. Just all across the board.
Seriously.
The conversation he has with Bilbo in the Desolation of Smaug is the most interesting thing that happens with him.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And then, again, he doesn't... Nothing happens. They have that stupid thing at the end of Desolation of Smaug where they try to engolden him.
Oh, God.
They build that, gold statue that, splashes on him, and he's like, oh, yeah? Well, I'll go burn your town. whatever.
So there were a few scenes I had trouble with. At the beginning, when they kill Smaug, he has the worst death scene ever. It was like Looney Tunes. He just flies into the sky. He might as well just popped a rose out and held it over his chest as he fell back down to earth.
He had like a Wile E. Coyote death.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. It was terrible. And then they had this, like, one character that just roamed around and all he was comedic distraction. Why is he there?
Which character?
Alfred.
Alfred.
Oh, Alfred.
Like, he...
Yeah,
That's what he's there
that
for.
got annoying after a while.
They might as
honestly.
well have just had him dance across the screen every once in a while.
He was there to bring humor.
That's what he was doing.
And it really needed it. It needed a lot more than it had. They had a couple of sight gags of, like, you know, the troll getting hit in the head and falling on all the other guys that were behind him and stuff like that, but you miss, like...
Him stuffing his corset full of gold.
Yeah.
And creating...
and those are all, like... But that's all, like, around that one character. Like, the tone of the movie needed more levity to be more interesting. You talk about, like the bet between Legolas and Gimli in the Two Towers. That's a funny concept, and that's a funny thing to watch. Like, you're interested in that.
There's a difference. That was well done. This was not.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah,
I'm saying the same thing.
This fell out of proportion. Just like, why is he here? And then you get back to the scene at hand after he disappeared. But another scene that I had problems with was when Thorin and his cousin meet on the battlefield. One, and me and Shawnee were talking about this, why was his cousin so CGI?
Yeah.
He was more
Was he
CGI than
animated?
the orcs.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was like, why is he so animated? Is he really animated in here? And I'm pretty sure he was, because I couldn't tell that it was a real character playing him.
He looked real to me.
Yeah, he was real. They added some visual effects to him to make him, like, stockier. And
It looked just so fake to me.
he was, like,
And
super
I don't
wide.
know.
But that scene where they hug, the battle around them does not look real.
Yeah.
It looks like they're walking in front of a green screen, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
It took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And then the other scene that really bothered me was Thorin's fever dream, where he was fighting off the dragon sickness. That was so melodramatic. I thought I was in an episode of Days of Our Lives.
Actually, that was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
I thought they visually representing madness like that. I loved it. I was really into that.
Yeah.
I thought it was
It's
hokey.
interesting.
Well,
I found it hokey.
again, I'm going to ask Jeremiah in a minute to, like, explain, like, what about the book it brought up and it, did well and delivered on. Because, full disclosure, I don't like the book. I don't like the Hobbit.
Oh, it's not a great book. Tolkien's not a very good writer.
The Lord of the Rings, I think I got about halfway through the Two Towers and gave up. Like, I got through Fellowship, I pushed myself through it, and I got into the Two Towers when they were just, like, walking forever. And I was like, nope, forget this. And then the movies really got me interested and involved again in it. But, yeah, I'm interested to know, like, what
was your favorite parts?
Favorite part? Oh, I don't know. Well, I'm still gonna go back to two of the ones at the top. Like I actually really dug that Smaug was dead in the first 10 minutes. Because, like, out of the book, that's how it happened. Like, his attack on Lake Town was, like, 2 pages. Bard shoots an arrow and he's dead. So that's exactly what I wanted at the beginning of the movie.
Exactly. That's not...
And I'm glad that's the way it began. Like,
that's not the movie's fault.
No.
That happened that way. It's...
And I like that they didn't put that at the end of the second movie, too. I liked starting
You
it
like
off.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the cliffhanger of, oh shit, he's flying towards Lake Town, what's going to happen? And then it's like, well, he has a weak spot. He's kind of a big wuss when you shoot an arrow at him.
Yeah.
And then I also like that by that part in the book, Bilbo is kind of a minor character for a big chunk.
That's true. And
it was kind of nice to get away from him because, like, even some of the scenes where he was fighting was a little ridiculous as it was. So it was nice that there wasn't a whole lot of him fighting and defending himself, because in the book he was just sort of like just in the movie. He got knocked out and he was passed out cold for most of the battle.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I was talking about, like, the choice of making either a faithful adaptation or a trilogy of PG-13 movies that's a satisfying trilogy of PG-13 movies
Sure.
is, you know, the book is from Bilbo's perspective.
Most of it, yeah.
So if we're watching the movie,
There are some third-person chapters.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I understand. But, like, when you're watching the movie, it's really hard for, like... It's really hard to convey, like, things that Bilbo doesn't do.
Sure.
Like, things that he's thinking are very hard to convey and would get really tedious in a film adaptation.
Yeah.
Like, if he's just narrating the whole thing, like... And well, that didn't seem right to me. Like, all that kind of stuff. So, again, it's like one of those things where... In some ways, I think that story is kind of unfilmable, but it's certainly not...
Well, it's tough too, because especially as The Hobbit was written, there was no expectation of there ever being more.
Yeah.
So like so many things get shoehorned into working as it is. That it doesn't, especially when you're filming it as a prequel as it is.
They retconned the whole like Smeagol conversation into it.
Yeah.
Right.
After The Lord of the Rings was being made, like they added that.
What do you mean added? Added what?
In The Hobbit, like he doesn't actually, in the original version, he didn't have the whole riddles in the dark.
No,
thing.
yeah, he did. That was there when I read the book in 6th grade.
Yeah, but the book was written in like, what, 1949 or something, 1950?
Oh, so you're saying that was added in a second?
It was, Tolkien added that after he started work on Lord of the Rings to make the whole Smeagol Bilbo ring thing more important.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
And to make Gollum more important, like to stick him out in your mind. So they're like, that was something that was added in later. And most people, like, that's their favorite scene in the first movie, right? It's the most interesting scene in the first movie. You get to see Gollum again, and you get to see, like, Bilbo have this, like, whole riddles thing with him, and we're finally getting, like, the tech showcase. Like, it's not just people walking through beautiful places or flying down rivers in barrels, and
we get to see more of Andy Serkis.
And more Andy Serkis.
That's
Always a
never
good
bad
thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that this series of movies had against it was the fact that they didn't do them in order. You know, you can't... If you've seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and if you're watching the Hobbit trilogy, you most likely have seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know Gandalf is alive. You know Bilbo's alive. And those are the two characters that they relentlessly put into peril. It's always, oh my God, is Gandalf going to die? Well, no, of course he's not going to die. You know he's in the
Yeah, but I didn't feel like
Rings.
I didn't feel like Gandalf was really much of a character either.
He really wasn't. Not
like,
really.
Between, I mean, you could list them off, like Gandalf, Bilbo, Legolas, Tariel. Like, there were several characters, like they shoehorned Galadriel in there, they shoehorned Saruman in there. There were a bunch of people that were put into the movie just to give you a little bit of context and also to make it, like, the glue to start the Fellowship up right afterward.
Yeah.
Like, it's designed to, like, you know, it ends with Gandalf coming back to...
Which I absolutely loved. If there's one thing that I loved about that movie, it was the ending, because that's them piecing together
That was perfect.
the movies. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
The way that they ended that. I love the ending. The ending's, once again, perfect.
Yeah.
But stitching together all that, and from someone that hasn't read the books, me, I have not gotten through all of them. You know, I haven't read through the Hobbits. So the climax that you so loved and watching Smaug die, I never knew about.
Yeah.
So if I were to go from, you know, if I were to read the books, then I would have been like, oh, well, okay, you know, that makes sense. That's how they did in the book. Whatever, I would have seen it coming. But for a lot of people that have not read the books, most of us out there haven't.
Right.
You watch the movie and you're expecting so much. And then just the ending so quick in the beginning of the movie is just such a letdown.
Yeah, and it's a series that, like, there's people that are irritated with the changes that were made. Like, there's people that are irritated with the characters that they added, and that they pulled Legolas back for no reason, and they added a bunch of things, partly to tie it back to Lord of the Rings and bring back characters that you like, and partly to, you know, like, otherwise you have 9 hours of movie with no women in it. Like, they had some things that they needed to work on. But, so there's people that are irritated with the changes. There's people that are going to be happy that this does a faithful retelling of the book and the expansion of, you know, all the other pieces and appendices and things that were brought into it. Mm-hmm. And I would agree, though, that the general viewing public will dislike the movies for the same reason that they would dislike the book. It's wordy, it's boring, not a whole lot happens, not a whole lot of it's interesting. It's a lot of eye candy and not a lot of substance.
Yeah, and that's just how they are. And
right.
A lot of people are like, you know, when you say like, oh, you know, like I like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you get a lot of people that's like, oh my god, it's so boring. So, a lot of people don't like that.
Right.
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
And it does take a little bit of patience to get through those books.
Yeah, and watching the movies, I mean, The Lord of the Rings needed to be a PG-13. These movies might have been better served by being made as PG movies, so that they could be a little bit more... They could be a little bit more precious with the characters. They could be a little bit more precious with how many, you know, character deaths we're expecting. You know, the stakes can be lower in a PG movie and still have...
That's
meet expectations.
That's the thing. Like, because if I'd have went in like, wow, like, what, 3 people died? That is a PG movie. I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's a PG movie that you can take your kids to, and, you know, it's no more violent than How to Train Your Dragon 2, like... then I think you have a strong case for making the movie the way that they made it. And I also think that, you know, it's true to what it is. It's just not going to be satisfying for people who aren't fans of the books. Like, if you're not there to see the stuff that you already know about, if you're there to see an interesting story, especially after seeing Lord of the Rings, it's not there.
And I think it kind of was at that level of How to Train Your Dragon 2, as far as violence goes. I mean, you had a couple execution scenes where there's no blood, there's no guts, there's a lot of beheadings, death and screaming. But beheadings, I mean, really, what age are we in right now that a kid doesn't know what a beheading is?
It's still a PG-13.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is it wasn't there. Like, if they were going to make it rated R or anything like that, there should have been some sort of gore or something. But there wasn't. I mean, the most gore was at the end of the movie when he killed him and the river started flowing red. That was the most gore I saw the entire movie. That was it.
Well, I mean, there are people getting their heads cut off. Like, that's why it gets to PG-13.
But that's what I'm saying, is it's so...
It was very sterile.
Yeah.
There was no blood.
There's no blood. There was no guts. I mean, you saw some blood, like when the Elven King was looking over his slain soldiers. Couple puddles of blood. Come on, really. In war, there's so much more blood, and I'm not like, I don't know. That's my only issue with it, is they tried to make it such a big scene, such a big fighting scene, and it just wasn't there. There was just a lot of like, slice the leg. This is what I saw 50 million times over. Slice the leg, cut off the head. Slice the leg, cut off the head. Because they're short. They're dwarves. Mm-hmm. Slice the leg, cut off the head. Yeah. Behead. That's all there was.
If you go back to Two Towers, they were a lot more inventive. You know, Gimli got out there and he had a lot more inventive kills than in this one. In this one, the kills were pretty much paint by the numbers. Mm-hmm. It was just really boring.
I did get the feeling that, to a degree, they weren't as invested in this movie as they were in the other movies.
And you could sense it too. That's, I think, was like my biggest disappointment, is because you know damn well that people are looking for this movie and they're looking forward to it, and you go and you see this movie and you can feel that the director just kind of half-assed it.
So what, Jeremiah, what do you think was the best, like, visualization of something from the book? Like, the best realized...
Oh, God. Man, that's hard. I don't know.
I mean, killing Smog, him getting over the dragon sickness thing.
And it's funny is like
Thorin
they played that
getting
way up.
stabbed.
They played that up in the book or in the movie way more than they did in the book. Really, it was obvious Thorin was going crazy in the book, but it was not played up as well. So I liked the movie version of that better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just like, I mean, the one thing I wanted out of this was epic battles for an hour and a half, and that's kind of what I got.
Yeah.
So seeing all the ranks of big armies and doing all that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that... I mean, this is a loaded question, but do you think that it was, like, anywhere close to, like, the battles in Return of the King or
Oh, no.
Not
Two
even.
Towers?
No.
Because, I mean, to me it was like Dracula Untold. And even maybe a little less interesting than Dracula Untold.
I thought Dracula Untold was better.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah. I don't think that's a good movie. I don't think it's I'm not recommending anyone to go see it, but, like, that has that sort of PG-13 epic battle
Feel.
thing going on. It's also got the guy that plays Bard.
So confusing.
So, yeah, Dracula of the Ring.
I was actually thinking that. I was like, oh my god, Dracula just killed Smog.
And the Lost Stark Boy.
Yeah. And Bard was actually one of the more interesting characters in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually cared about him more than I care about Thorin. Because Thorin's arc was, he's great, he's crazy, he's great. And it's like a binary switch. It's like, he's great, he's crazy, now he's great again, now he's dead.
It was
The
very,
end.
very predictable.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Very.
yeah.
And that is... I don't really like being able to predict a movie.
We'll end on
That's my level. I can't, like, there's no words to describe it for me. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I have absolutely loved both of the Hobbit movies, and I just expected so much more. Once again, I have not read the book, so, don't criticize me on that, but I felt like the potential was just so much there, so very much there, and they just nuked it so bad. And good fighting scenes, yeah. Love scene, check. Gone crazy, happy, check. Good ending, perfect ending. Other than that,
For a meh.
meh.
That's the Lord of the Rings. That will be our review of The Hobbit 3, The Battle of the Five Armies. If you like the way we do these reviews, please like the video, subscribe, and check out all the written and video reviews at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.